The following podcast is a work of fiction, unlike spiders, which are very real. There's probably a few in your house right now, hiding under the fridge, or in the back of your bathroom cabinets, or behind your TV. They're very good at hiding, spiders. Hiding and biting.
Hello, curious minds, and welcome back to A Beginner's Guide to the Occult. I'm your host, Rebecca Morgan, and I care about you. I'm concerned with your well-being. I want you all to stay safe and happy and unmurdered by vengeful spirits. That's why I thought I'd use today's episode to answer a few questions submitted on Patreon. Our first question comes from Daniel O'Brien. He writes, "Hi, Rebecca. Love your show, learning so much. I know this one might sound a bit trivial, but can you keep demons as pets? I know, but if you saw what I accidentally summoned by mispronouncing my yoga mantra, I'm sure you'd agree he's not like the others. He has 2 big round eyes, tiny clawed hands and feet, and he can't bite very hard yet, so he just hangs off my little finger. I've called him Simon. Would love to hear your thoughts, Dan." First of all, thank you, Dan. I'm so glad you're enjoying the show. You seem like a very nice person, which is why it pains me to tell you that Simon definitely wants you dead. I know it may seem cute when he nibbles your fingers or chews through the gas line behind your oven, filling your house with toxic fumes, but make no mistake, these are all deliberate attempts on your life. Now, this doesn't mean you have to get rid of him. Plenty of people own pets who want to kill them. Anyone with a snake, mice, most cat breeds, or any kind of tropical fish are living with creatures who would brutally murder them if only they could survive outside of that damn tank. The trick is to make life more enjoyable with you around. Provide them with something they couldn't get without you. Fancy treats, trips to the park, car rides, and with any luck, the next time Simon contemplates ripping out your esophagus, he'll remember all those homemade demon snacks you've given him and think, not worth it. Our next question comes from Randy Oleg. Randy writes, "Dear Rebecca, I have a problem. I'm a ghoul and I've been house sharing with a horrible clown who I shall not name. They never do their fair share of haunting the guests we have, and they also have no personality. They're not even funny. What could I do to get rid of this hideous housemate? I want them gone, like lost in the forest kind of gone. Many thanks, Oleg." Oleg, I feel for you. I've had my fair share of troublesome housemates, and they can be very difficult to deal with. A reasonable person might tell you that communication is key, and that you should try talking to them. But in my experience, this simply does not work. What does work is making yourself completely unbearable to live with. I might suggest scaring them away, but since your housemate is a clown and they are notoriously unflappable, I think irritation is your path to success. Does your housemate keep leftovers in the fridge? Those are your leftovers now. Eat them in front of the clown. Borrow their clothes and return them unwashed. Leave dirty dishes all over the house, in places that don't even make sense. Insist on watching the worst selection of TV shows you can think of at full volume in the middle of the night. As I understand it, clowns put a lot of effort into their appearance. Face paint, wigs, unusual outfits. Find some way to accidentally destroy those items. Maybe you thought washing their wigs in the dishwasher was a good idea and you were just trying to be nice. Maybe you thought adding a little garlic to their expensive clown makeup would make it smell good and help ward off vampires. Do all of these things, Oleg, and I guarantee you this clown will be running for the hills. Our last letter comes from Mark Kingsley. Mark writes, "Hi, Rebecca. I think my baby might be a changeling. It has very dark skin and none of my freckles or my wife's red hair. I think my wife feels the same way because she doesn't like talking about where it came from. Do you know how I can get in contact with my local fairies to bargain for my original kid back? Love your work, Mark." Mark, I think you're right on the money here. I can see absolutely no other explanation as to why your child doesn't resemble you. This is definitely a changeling. For those of you unfamiliar with the legend, a changeling is a fairy child that's been swapped with a human baby in the hopes that the humans will raise it as their own. I guess because raising a child is really difficult and exhausting? Hard to fault that logic, really. Now, this may sound like a terrible situation, but honestly, Mark, I think you've been presented with one hell of an opportunity. Fairies are extremely powerful creatures, but not necessarily evil, more chaotic neutral. If you raise this changeling as your own, and it grows to love you, then in a few years, you'll have a magical being at your beck and call who loves you unconditionally and craves your approval. Now, I'm sure you're thinking, but Rebecca, what about my baby, the human child who was swapped out for the changeling? And to that I say, are you at all familiar with the Shakespeare play A Midsummer Night's Dream? At the start of the play, the king and queen of fairies, Oberon and Titania, are fighting. Titania has a human child, presumably one who was swapped out for a fairy baby at some point, and Oberon wants that child to become one of his knights. But Titania won't let it go because its mother was one of her worshippers, and also because she's grown to love it. So, worst case scenario, your kid is a knight working for fairy royalty, which I imagine is a respected position in fairy society. And best case scenario, your kid's being doted on by the fairy queen as we speak. All in all, it's not a bad life. And what's the alternative? School? University? A 9-to-5 job that it tolerates in order to pay for a 2-week vacation once every 3 years? Working for fairy royalty is starting to sound like a pretty appealing concept, if you ask me. Anyway, that's all the questions I have time for today. I hope you found these answers helpful. Don't forget to tune in next week, and remember, demons? Bad to live with. Fairies? Good to live with. Clowns? Well, it depends on the clown. Clowns are not a monolith. Hey everybody, thank you for listening. I had a lot of fun with this episode. It was really great getting to build a script around your ideas. I'd love to do more episodes like this and find other ways that you guys can have an input on the show. And you can get in on that action for as little as $1 a month if you join my Patreon. So you'd also be helping me buy food, and that is always fun. Anyway, shameless self-promotion over. Have a great day, and I will see you next week.